This special software showcase features a final demo from our April 2025 hackathon. Let's take a look.
So the idea here is to kind of use some insights from large language models, and maybe it's useful for checking or identifying potential misspellings. Maybe it's useful for trying to help enhance consistency in word choice. That's kind of ultimately the inspiration here. But what I'm fundamentally doing is we can, as these language models ultimately do word prediction. The idea is to get the language model to predict words as part of our translation. And in addition to that, as part of its selection process of which word specifically it wants to select, it has its list of its vocabulary, and then a probability distribution, and then it selects what it sees as the most likely word. So to kind of give an illustration of that, from a YouTuber who was explaining how large language models work, didn't have just the images, so I pulled up a couple of parts in the video.
Nice.
So in this example, he's using a sentence talking about Harry Potter, and then it gets to this point where it's trying to predict this next word. And so this list is a subset of all of the words that the language model has in its vocabulary, and it's going to predict Snape because the probability is the highest over all of the other words. So more specifically, we see he's trying to emphasize here, this is every word in the language model's vocabulary, and this is there's a probability associated with every single word there, and so it picks the highest one. So in older style models, specifically models called that are part of this family of models called BERT, they didn't just do next token or next word prediction, but they would do a thing called masked language modeling. And so there is part of its input, there would be a mask token, and its purpose was to fill in that mask. So that mask didn't have to always be at the end of the sentence. It wasn't always just the next token, but just what goes in that mask. So that was kind of the inspiration behind this idea of, what if we took every verse individually, and then for the verse, go over every word in the verse. And so for each permutation, let's take that verse and then replace each word one at a time with that mask token. So let's remove it, cover it up. So for example, we'll start with this. So we would cover up this, and we would see the rest of the sentence is the beginning of the gospel of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. And then we're asking, what should fill in that blank? Which right now, the blank is over the word this. So we'll get the models, was trying to get the top 5 results from the model, and their corresponding probabilities. And I should make note that this is distinctly different than asking the model, hey, how confident are you here? This is internal to the model, not asking the model itself. So it's almost like if we think of neural networks as a brain, as opposed to asking somebody how confident they are in their response, it's like we're actually measuring the voltage of the neurons firing when they give the answer. So then after we get a list of potential words for this, we want to move on to the next word. So we'll take the sentence again, and this time only block out the word is. And then for the next iteration, we'll only block out the word the. Yes.
For the second iteration, when we block out is, have we potentially replaced this? Or is it still this because that was the original?
It's still this. So it is the original. So so when I show the results, keep that in mind. The word is in the context of every word from the original sentence, and not the other ones that replaced it with. Yeah. So I have another tab that is already kind of run because this was the first pass that I had done some months ago with the BERT style model that's designed for filling the mask. So here, these are the top 5 results, and it is most confident with the word this at about 59%. Oddly enough, is does not show up in its top 5 results. Its top 5 results are rather wacky.
I thought worst.
And none of these are particularly confident. The one that is most confident in is 23%. But one of the things that really showed some promise as to why I'm interested in this problem is we see that as does show up twice, but it's significantly more confident that it should be capitalized. And this is the beginning of the sentence. And so this was kind of suggesting that there is maybe potential here, because this is the kind of thing that we would want to be able to hopefully analyze about translators' work. It could be, one of the kinds of mistakes that they could make, and it would be really nice if we were able to have the AI be able to identify these kinds of things. But ultimately, I did have a lot of concerns with the performance here of this model. Its support for other languages was even worse. But even in the case of English, we do see some things that are pretty rough. Like instead of beginning, it wants to say book or translation or yet website.
Life of Jesus Christ. I remember that person.
Is that the old Flash or the new Flash?
It's the summer of 34.
I do like the voice of God man outrun the darkness. Or outrun the dark.
Yeah. And so some of the problems, again, this is an older model. Its context window is only about 500 tokens. It's very small. And so I was wanting to try and see, can we adapt this to these newer models, see if we get better performance, see if we get more language support, see if maybe even longer term, if it shows some promise, then maybe we could incorporate things like RAG, like Tony had worked on, and give it more context to hopefully reinforce the right selection of the word. As right now, its goal is just to fill in a word that would make the sentence, some sense, make sense. So it doesn't necessarily care if the word is actually accurate to our context. So in that sense, book is a reasonable thing to have here.
Yeah.
So let me run it with, I did get it hooked up to GPT 4.0. And it takes a little bit because again, this is each word is one call to the model. So we do see that it is a lot more confident in its results, but we do still have some issues here. It is very certain that it should be the, which is all the more frustrating because do remember this, the next word is from the original sentence. And so he is doesn't make any sense. I'm very shocked that I had that. And we also start to see some of the problems and limitations that I came to find in adapting it to the GPT model, which is instead of filling in the entire word, I can only get the top 5 tokens.
Oh,
So, oddly enough, begin and beginning are both whole tokens, but unfortunately, begin was stronger for some reason.
well,
But presumably, it may have thought it was just going to select. It was just going to break off begin and then the other half of the word.
Right.
And that's just how it tokenized it. And so maybe if we were able to look at what the next token it would have picked would have actually gotten us back to beginning. Similarly, we have the problem here. And it's all the more frustrating because we do end up seeing it in the results in both cases here, but with almost no confidence. Which then made me go down the road of, because I can't get a whole word, I can only get one token if I want this, give me 5 and their probabilities. The next thing that I could try to do is ask it for 5 potential responses. The problem there, though, is it's just kind of just doing a 5 requests to the model, just kind of in one API call, but it's not actually leveraging the actual like statistics in the machine, because each one is just generating it again. So if you have the temperature set to 0, which is always choose the most likely, then what I was ending up getting is the same 5 words for every response. So unfortunately, this is a huge limitation, but I can get the whole word if I'm okay with only getting the highest response, which maybe that's good enough to get some kinds of insights, even though maybe it would be nice to get some alternatives. So that's kind of where I am now. It was a little bit discouraging that I couldn't get exactly the kinds of results that I was hoping for that I could get from the original model, but leveraging the enhancements of the newer models. But yeah, so
All right,
that's that one.
That was really cool.
so it sounds like kind of come to the conclusion for now. We can put that down, maybe
Yeah.
pick it up later if something changes significantly to spark the interest. Questions? All right, good. We're gonna save our applause because you're still on, man.
Yeah. So unfortunately, with the next one, I wish that Travis was here.
Oh.
So kind of worked on Travis bot, in some sense.
You modeled the Travis?
Yeah. A little bit of opportunity to learn about some of the things that Travis thinks about when he's approaching, like looking at a text. And so Travis had, from his own experimentation, felt like he has been able to ask linguistics type questions to these models and get pretty reasonable results. And so he wanted to see if we could do that at a massive scale. And so show kind of the questions that we asked, but also say that it ended up being a little bit different than maybe what I was thinking naively. But the actual task of looking at the inferences in a particular sentence is maybe not as quantitative as I would have hoped. such that asking the model to just enumerate out all of them, it's not really a feasible kind of thing. And so, so what I did was he gave a couple of kinds of inferences that he would like to look for, and then for purposes of helping me understand what we were trying to do, gave some examples, which I then promptly handed the model. So what I did, we were looking at the Book of Philemon, and worked with a library that's very familiar to Tony, called LangChain. What I was able to do with it is, it's kind of like working with the OpenAI API, but it's a little bit more generalized and also not just specific to OpenAI or anything that uses specifically the OpenAI API, but more general so that you can apply the same kind of code, swap out models very easily. So here I have kind of the system template that's describing overall the problem, and hyping it up as it is an expert linguist. And telling it the language that I want the response in, telling it the verse number that I want it to focus on. I provide it the entire USFM for the particular language that I'm looking at. I want a little bit of some headings at the beginning of each page. And these are ultimately the 3 prompts that I'm going to ask it for every verse. So we were going to look at we're asking it for the top 5 social inferences. And he gave the example of hedging or face saving. We asked for the top 5 conversational inferences and the top 5 logical inferences. And then we're able to just iterate over every verse and execute all of these and compile it into Markdown. So I'm going to share that in the chat for you all. But then also look at what we got back for just verse 1. So here I have it in GPT 4.0. So we have the pragmatic inferences, social inferences, conversational inferences, and logical inferences. And so some of the things that we did discover is, because I specifically called out the examples that I gave it, it really wants to make sure that that's included.
Hedging in face.
Yeah.
Really wants to make sure he's doing face save.
Yeah.
Right. And so there is, as a result of it kind of forcing that, between that and asking it for 5 examples where maybe it would prefer not to give 5 examples because maybe there aren't 5 examples to give. Yeah. Sometimes it does kind of force things, but just kind of casually looking at it, Travis was or did agree with a good bit of the content, enough that he was interested in it, and we sent it over to Crystalline to look at and see if this is the kind of thing that they would be interested in, such that like we could continue to experiment and find ways to get it more accurate. And maybe one of the things that we learned certainly is don't force it to give 5 things. Don't necessarily give it examples so that you're not encouraging that. But I did get response in 4.0 mini as well, and then wanting to do it and see how it would do in other languages. Generated it in Bulgarian and had Petya look at it. We did find certainly much more concerning content in the Bulgarian.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
So 2 out of the 5 social inferences that he came up with were theologically incorrect.
Mhm.
Both about the same thing. They were saying that because Paul is saying that he is a prisoner of the Lord, when he clearly is a person of authority in the church structure, he must be being hypocritical. The word used is hypocritical, but he was displaying a false humility in saying that he's a prisoner. Yikes. The other inferences were good, but those are really, really bad.
Mhm.
And Bulgarian, just as for context, Bulgarian is has about 9 million native speakers. That might be generous. It might be closer to 7. So, just a medium-ish resource language.
Not a low one.
Not a low one.
Yeah.
Mm. So even more concerning possibly for our low resource languages.
Probably so much less training data in Bulgarian. In the training data, I would imagine, but
Yeah, it was certainly enough to make Travis feel like maybe the better path forward there would be to just generate it in English and then translate it from English into the GLs rather than trust its ability to generate content in the GLs directly.
Mhm. Mhm.
But yeah, so we did it in Bulgarian, French, had John Wood give a pass at it, and then Vietnamese for Tony as well. Not sure if you guys have.
Did you develop an opinion, Tony?
any
Yeah,
opinions?
I read it earlier, and it's just not comfortable to read because there are things that you can take it literally for a word, but the AI seems to interpret it in a really, really, really deep level of abstractions.
Mm.
It's, for example, talking about relationship between when Paul mentioned Timothy, uh, the AI was saying that they had a strong a connection between the two in such a way that it just blew me off and put me back to high school studying literature.
Mm.
So yeah, it just feel more than what the text is talking about.
Mhm.
Supporting Travis's point of view.
The French observations were pretty much in line with the English. French is a little bit more formal a language in a lot of ways than English is, and so the translation of the French into English sounds a little stilted, but I didn't see any real problems insofar as there were no new problems in the French that weren't already there.
Mhm.
And yeah, it seemed to understand much better that Paul's talk about being a prisoner was both physical and spiritual, but no idea of it being false humility. And while there is a part of me that sort of rebels against the idea that he is explicitly including certain things to manipulate Philemon's response, that's also why he's writing the letter, is he's, trying to coach Philemon into a correct response. So yes, he's reminding him of these things so that when he addresses the
Argument is persuasive.
So, and it didn't really present it in a bad way. It's just like he is predisposing the recipient to respond in a certain way by mentioning these things, and that's true. So.
It's neutral, but it could be misinterpreted pretty easily.
Well, and again, I mean, just because Asimov wrote a wonderful reference work on the scriptures, being an atheist, that doesn't mean that all atheistic insights into the scriptures are going to be. And this is not even a spiritual being that's assessing the text, and so. Given that, it's surprising how well it did in some respect. And I don't think this was present in the English, but there was actually even some social historical observations about, it talks about the church meeting in Philemon's home, and that reflects on the social setting in which this was taking place, where churches were meeting in homes instead of in, and full insight, I wouldn't have expected it necessarily to come up with that.
That was the first two, right?
Yeah, first two.
I wonder if the English for verse 2 has that context because the verse 1.
I have it, so I can look it up later.
But
So Joe, do you or Travis see any loose threads that you want to pursue before putting this one down, or? I mean, should you rephrase it so that this expert linguist all went to Cambridge and or Oxford and see if that does anything?
I would defer to Travis. I know that like we did hand it off to Chris Lane, so I think Travis is mostly of the opinion of like let's see what their thoughts are before we invest any more in it. So I think that's kind of where it's at.
Excellent.